I would like to call the July 15, 2024 Budget Workshop number 2 to order. It is 4:30 p.m. There is a quorum present. Notice of this meeting has been posted in time and manner required by law. Mr. Jones, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Cliff Williams.
Present.
Scott Carson.
Present.
Charles Perry.
Present.
Kyle Hagemeyer.
Present.
Miss Paulette Traylor.
Present.
Our missing members, Ms. Nikita Lagway. My name is Chad Jones. Thank you.
Perfect. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Assistant Superintendent of Business and Finance, G-Money.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome to the new and improved budget workshop. Obviously, this is a little more informal. The goal for tonight is to be a little less formal than this standard board meeting, and really just have open discussion about the budget process as we go into the late stages of it. I mean, y'all know me. I'm a little bit of a planner, so this is throwing me off my game a little bit. But really, I do hope that this can be a back and forth discussion as we go over this budget. And really, at the end, the primary topic is going to be debt, as we really dive into what our current debt outlook is, what the structure is moving into this next year as we look to issue some more. So that being said, at any point during this discussion, please stop me if you have any questions. The point of this and having y'all down here is so we can go back and forth a little easier. Obviously, it's before the standard board meeting, so it's the goal is to be going back and forth a little bit. So to start, as far as the topics, we're going to hit on a few key items that are integral as we build the budget, as far as our assumptions, our preliminary property values. We will review a recap of the 24-25 general fund budget. I'm going to give you all an update on the health insurance. I know we've talked about that quite a bit lately. And then we are really going to dive into the debt service discussion. Looking at our assumptions, this has not changed significantly since last month. But we are looking at a growth of approximately 240 students. It's about 2.9%. I do think that's conservative yet realistic on that approach. I mean, if you look at the passive demographer study, they're saying we're going to grow 10,000 kids in 10 years. At some point, we're going to start growing double-digit percentage growth over the next 2, 3, 5 years. But as of right now, as far as projections, using 240 students, I do think that's realistic. The position vacancy allowance, I'm using 2 to 4%. As just a reminder, I mean, our system budgets every position being filled 100% of the time. That's not obviously a realistic approach. So I am using 2 to 4% based on an employee group to allow a little more budget flexibility as we move forward into next year's budget. Tax rate, using the preliminary property values. This is a projection, but I'm projecting the tax rate to be just under $1. That's 0.6669 for the M&O rate. And maintaining an INS rate of 331, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more as far as the options for the INS rate, the projections, and what we need to incur this debt. But currently, just under $1, which is a reduction of 23 cents if you look at back since 1819. Any questions thus far? Chad?
No, I'm good. They're coming.
No, I'm waiting for it. Preliminary property values. Obviously, this is a big driver of our budget. If you look at the most current report from the county and the appraisal district, it's at 16.25%. That's the taxable value increase. That's the important value when it comes to us as a school district. I will say I've gone back and forth with both the county appraisal district and the tax collector on this number. And I've held their feet to the fire a little bit on it. If you remember back to last month, this number was 13.6%, so it's gone up since the last report. And that's not normal. Typically, as we go through the summer, you're going through the ARB process, you're going through the protests, you're making those settlements, and that number is trickling down a little bit, but it has jumped rather significantly. And so I've asked for clarification and verification on that. And as we move forward to solidifying this budget, I'm going to expect some more accurate numbers from them because there's been some issues in the last 2 cycles. But as of right now, it's at 16.25%. Those values are required to be certified by July 25th, so just here in the next week. So at that point, we will get those values. We will submit those to the state and they will tell us what our maximum compressed tax rate is. So here in the next 14 days, we will know exactly what that M&O tax rate should be from the state. Any questions on that?
Do they have a person in charge yet?
There is an interim chief appraiser, and I'm anticipating her finishing out this cycle.
Okay.
I don't think that they're going to make any switches in the middle of it. So right now it's an interim, and I've been communicating with her fairly regularly about these, because we need some accurate data to be able to project our budget for this next year. And there's been some significant adjustments the last two cycles from their end. And so we're working forward to getting to a better place on that end.
Okay.
If we look at just a quick recap of our general fund budget, I'm not anticipating this changing significantly. Y'all adopted the compensation plan early this year, so that's the main part of this budget as far as the salaries and the compensation plan, the raises, and the additional positions. Is the primary over 85% of this budget is that. And so really the only thing that's going to change on this front is right now I'm using projections for those positions. I'm working on running some updated personnel snapshots to fill that in with realistic, accurate data based on the actual people that we fill those positions with. So that number, I'll use this to see again. The salaries and benefits will shift as I run accurate or updated projections based on real people. That number will shift. I'm not anticipating the operating budget shifting significantly between now and adoption. But overall, looking at adopting the general fund budget of just approximately 85.5 million. Next, I wanted to really discuss health insurance. Obviously, this has been a hot topic. The primary takeaway right now is that we are proposing no rate changes for the district contribution. So that's the $450 per employee per month, and no proposed changes to employee premiums. So that's really been the objective the last 4 or 5 years that I've been here, is to reduce the impact on the employees. We are keeping with that strategy going into next year. We can go over that a little bit more in a little bit. But as of right now, the primary takeaway is that that's the current year rates and district contribution, and we're not proposing a change to that. To kind of go over a history, I know y'all have seen these numbers, but to go over a history of our health insurance fund. As you see, we run a deficit the last 4 audited cycles. Really, when you go back to 1920 and 2021, this is a result of increased claims. You can kind of toss COVID into 1920 through 2021. There was a significant increased claims in 21. In 21, 22, that's really what I'm using as my baseline as a relatively normal year. And so in 22, 23 is when we increased the district contribution from $400 to $450. So you will notice the district contribution increased from 6.2 million to 7 million. That is a result of us increasing that contribution and adjusting the employee premiums that year. That being the case, and you'll also notice that the district the last 3 years has made the transfers from the general fund to the health insurance fund, basically to cover this shortfall. For 23-24, unfortunately, we're having another very large claim year. So I am anticipating another deficit this year. So we're doing 2 things. One, we're having a very healthy year on the general fund side, so most likely in August I'm going to request another transfer similar to what we've done the last 3 years. But more importantly, we're looking forward in what we can do to get out of this pattern. We are looking at some hard costs that we can save, and we're looking at planning forward really towards next year, the next cycle, what we can do to save dollars. And it comes on the fixed cost side and also on the claim side. Again, later on this evening, Walker & Associates will be here presenting the Blue Cross Blue Shield renewal. Obviously there's an increase associated with that, as there is most years, especially in recent history. This year, we kept with the same objective of limiting the employee impact. So we did not adjust the employee premiums, we did not adjust the deductibles or the co-pays or anything like that. All those things that we could do to potentially save the plan money. We went ahead and left that the same this year with the plan and the goal to use this next year to really evaluate the plan overall. Honestly, go out to bid for Blue Cross Blue Shield next year and really kind of hold their feet to the fire to see what we can accomplish on the cost savings side on that end. So unfortunately, the reality is that might result in some impact to the employees, but we're at to the point where we're trying to get out of this cycle. But again, for this next year, for this renewal, it's very limited changes on that plan. Any questions about this or this data? Again, I guess just to reiterate, I mean, again, the primary goal is to not increase this, and we're not proposing any changes for this next budget year. Obviously, to increase the district contribution, that would have a very big impact on the general fund budget, and then increasing employee premiums for the employees would be less take-home pay for them. So that's we're not proposing any changes on those lines. Okay, debt service really is the topic that I want to discuss pretty heavily with y'all, and really go into more detail than we historically have in the past. Right now, I'm looking at a projected budget of just over $24 million for debt service for next fiscal year. If we look at our revenue sources and really what's funded, I guess first of all, if you look at school district debt as a whole, bonded indebtedness is extremely structured. It's not unlike a mortgage payment and how it's structured, but it's similar yet different as far as the structure of it. If we did not issue any additional debt from this point out, this would be our debt schedule and our debt payment until 2051. We know exactly what our payment was every year, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, if we were about to issue additional more, it's going to change this outlook. And then we issue the remaining authorized next summer, it's going to change this even more. However, I want to take a brief second to look at how our debt is funded. Ultimately, school district debt is funded by the INS side of the tax rate. So next month, the school board is going to adopt the tax rate. We'll get the M&O from the state here in the next 3 weeks. But the INS rate is up to the school board and what is authorized by the voters. So right now, our tax rate is 33.1 cents. As of this last May election, since Proposition A passed, legally, we do have the authority to increase that tax rate approximately 3.7 cents if we wanted to. However, I'm not anticipating the need based off of where our current value is at and where the need of issuing the 15 million and the 87 million next summer. We can talk about that a little bit more. But ultimately, as far as where it's funded, is strictly that side of the tax rate that goes to make our debt payments. So the revenue from that, I like nice round numbers. So there's just a quick example as far as a $500,000 home, 100,000 homestead exemption, apply the tax rate, the INS tax rate. So that's approximately $1,300 that goes to the INS revenue. So that $1,300 across all the school district and makes up that revenue from local sources for our INS budget. Any questions thus far? So what's a little different this year and going into next year is the significant increase in the revenue from state sources. Last year was about 400,000, 450,000. Obviously, this year I'm anticipating 2.6. I'm projecting next year to be 2.6. What that stems from is ultimately the increase in the homestead exemption. Prior to this last legislative cycle, the homestead exemption was 40,000, and it was increased to 100,000. So just a quick example on that same home value holding everything else the same. At a $500,000 home value at the $40,000 homestead exemption, for INS purposes, we're bringing in $1,500. Since they increased the homestead exemption, obviously that reduced the taxable value, and on that same value, we'd be bringing in $1,324, losing about $200 in taxes as a result of that increase. So what the state is saying is that they will hold us harmless for that portion, and they will make it up. And so if you take that $200 and multiply it times all the value in the district, that's what's making up the $2.6 million in state revenue. It's a good thing because obviously the state's helping us make our debt payment because they reduced our taxable value. The bad thing is, in my opinion, is now we're relying on the state to be able to make our debt payment. And they adopt a budget every 2 years. And so in 2 years, if they adopt a budget and they reduce this, it's a potential decrease in that. And so now as a school district, whereas we haven't been historically relying on the state, we're becoming a little bit more reliant on the state to make our debt payment. Any questions there? Okay, to get back into our debt structure, again, this is our current debt structure as of our last audit. These are the real factual numbers as far as if you look at the principal, interest, and the total debt service. I mean, this is the reality of a fast growth district that we are as far as issuing bonds and debt. I think this is the third or fourth bond election since I've been here in the last 4 years. And so it's $366 million in principal amount, $228 million in interest, with a total debt service of $594 million as of last audited figures. If you take that and you apply it to a graph, this is what it looks like, and this is just a visual representation of the debt and the revenue that we bring in at our current tax rate. So if you look at our current year, at our current tax rate, we're bringing in enough to satisfy our debt needs. And you'll notice, I guess the next point that I want to make, so that line as far as the 331 is the revenue that we're bringing in as a result of that tax rate. So what happens as property values increase, so as this occurs and our taxable values increase 16%, that creates more capacity, that brings in more revenue at our current tax rate. So without us having to increase the tax rate past 331, obviously we're bringing in more revenue because those taxable values increase. And so that raises the bar a little bit. That provides the borrowing capacity. So I'm going to refer to as far as the white open area is our borrowing debt capacity that we can add on to where we're currently at. Which obviously you see as our property values grow, and historically our property values have grown pretty heavily here in Montgomery County. That's why in the past when we have issued bonds, and when we've issued bonds since 2015, 2020, 2022, we haven't had to significantly increase the tax rate, in some instances not have to increase the tax rate at all because of this, because our revenue has increased, because the values have increased. The main point I wanted to make at this point is that as of right now, you'll notice this is our current outlook before we apply the property value increases. You'll notice there's not very much white space. There's not a lot of additional capacity in this graph. I just want to bring to attention as far as the reasoning behind that. And it's not negative, it's just the reality of where we're at and growing and having to issue bonds to build new campuses. If you look at our original par amount, as far as the original dollar amount that we issued for each one of our outstanding bond issuances, it's about almost $391 million on the original amount. If you look at the last three bond elections since 2015, over 90% of that has been issued since 2015, so it's under 10 years old. If you look at just the last two since 2020, over 60% of that has been issued since 2020. And again, it's not a negative thing, it's just the reality of where we're at as a school. It's the reality of where school districts across the state are at, because this is the only avenue that we as school districts have to build additional campuses and grow as we need. If you take what's been authorized but not issued, obviously in May they authorized $102.7 million We have not issued that yet. We were looking at issuing 15 million. We're gonna sell that this August. And then, the current plan is to issue the other 87 million, next summer, when the construction ramps up for those projects. But if you add that into the picture, that means over 70% of our debt has been issued, since 2020. This impacts us in multiple ways as far as, if you think back to our first rating, this is really the only area that we lose points on in our first rating. As they look at a ratio of our current debt to our property values, and last year we received 6 out of 10 points for that. And as we continue to issue debt, more goes into that formula, that number can go down a little bit more. But that's the only area where we're losing a few points. But again, it's just the reality of where we are and having to grow and build campuses. But this, I guess, since the point I want to make is, since the majority of our debt is so recent, I mean, at this point, after we issue another 102 million, over 70% of our debt's going to be over the last 4 years. So again, I guess the primary point I want to make after that, are there any questions at this point? Dr. James promised me some more back and forth on this.
Hey, I asked him when we were in our meeting, you haven't, I went back and forth with you then about all this.
But the primary point I want to make with this is, yes, we do have some additional capacity with the projected property value increase. But the reality is we have to put in $100 million worth of debt into this picture. And so, as of right now, my anticipation is that we will not have to increase the tax rate past the 331 to accomplish that. We can easily issue the 15 million in this debt picture without, and then with another round of property value growth next year, it's going to increase this line a little bit more, and we should be able to anticipate be able to issue the other 87 million without having to increase it beyond 331. However, as a school board, I mean, you do have the option. I said, obviously, I believe the goal has been to hold the tax rate as steady as we can, but as we look at the overall picture, we do have the ability to increase it legally 3.7 cents based off this last election. I can certainly look at and run different models and opinions based off of y'all's route that y'all want to go, but as of right now, I do anticipate us being able to accomplish the issuance of the 102.7 million at the 331. Not really yet. Is there any other questions, or anyone go back and review any of these numbers, or any other questions on the general fund, anything along those lines?
Covered it, you did a great job, but me and you went back and forth with everybody.
I was counting on you.
I know, but we covered it all.
Yeah.
At some point, you know, with the growth that's coming on, I mean, we gotta pay this debt back, right? And we get it, but
Yeah.
with the growth coming on, that's gonna help us. I know it's a tough deal, but without state funds, we don't have really no other option.
Well, I mean, we're fortunate as a school district because we are growing in both property values. I mean, y'all know how fast we're going here as far as the developments coming in, and this, that, and the other. So our property values are growing and our enrollments are growing. And so we're able to head off, and that's part of the reason why we've been so successful financially, because we're in that situation. And so as we go forward, I mean, yes, as our property values continue to grow double digits over here, when we project these things, we try to be as conservative as we can, and it's past projections. If it does grow 16% this year, we have another 16% next year, I mean, we might have a little bit more leeway. But as of now, the current outlook, if something changes along those lines as far as for additional issuances, and it might update this, but I do think we could accomplish this issuance at the 331 if we increased it beyond that and had additional issuances November or May. The point I want to make is it's very realistic that we would have to increase the tax rate beyond that. We'd certainly have to look at different models, different projections based off of cash flow needs, the property values next spring to see what we could accomplish. But based off of the debt that we still have to issue, it would be a tough ask to issue additional without having to increase the tax rate further.
Do we know what it looks like if we were to go out for bond in November or beyond that? I mean, obviously, we're still not done building, we're
Yeah.
not done growing. Probably gonna have to do at least another school,
Yeah.
probably 25, would be
Yeah.
my guess. I mean, obviously, we've gotta do this stuff.
Yeah.
But, I mean, in the end, we still never would have reached what everybody wanted, was a high school value of 300 and whatever,
Yeah.
without raising the tax.
No.
And we've been
And,
fortunate.
and that's exactly what I was gonna say.
That's-
So here's my theory or my thought point. If we start another high school and we don't have a stadium, and we
Yeah.
don't have these things, then we're gonna have to try to do all that again, and we're gonna have a huge tax increase and
Yeah.
so on and so forth. So I think that the approach that we've been taking to get things done in a period of time and in increments, I think our voters still, when you say $200 million, they freak the hell out. Cause you can see, if we're around 100 million, it's pretty, we haven't had a big issue with them not supporting it.
Other than athletics.
Other than athletics.
Yeah.
And so I think that, you know, looking at moving forward and, you know, if we're gonna say, listen, in 7 years, we're gonna have to vote to build high school number 2, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in time, we're issuing bonds at year 8, 9, 10.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're able to be in a situation where we can have a 5-cent increase and we could have a stadium built and those things in this time, when we get to that point in time, would it not be a better situation to progressively, slowly grow that growth? I mean, does that make sense? I mean, I'm asking because I'm talking to people about, I don't know if this is budget workshop material or not, but I get really, lack of a better term, pissed off at the efforts that a lot of us have put in, and that we only had, 11% of our voters come out and vote? That's crap. So, for me, I think at this election, you know, when we dodged a bullet on Saturday, obviously, but, as this election, I think the voter turnout is gonna be much greater than 11%. You know, I think that there is a lot of people, I think in the past, we've taken the deal of, we believe we can get the yes voters out to vote yes, when in actuality, they sit on their asses at home, sorry if that's, accordance for there. If they're sitting at home and not voting and going, oh, well, man, I just, you know, blah, 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 I didn't hear any negatives, so I didn't figure you needed my vote. That's just lazy. And I think we have some of that here. And so I think if we start looking at things, if we're gonna have, say, 13, 14,000, I think is the projections, what they're assuming out of the 36 that are gonna show up, that we should have 33 to 40%. You know, is it better for us as a community to put things out here during presidential elections? You know, and I don't know, I just feel like we get such a small percentage of the population coming to vote, you know, in May or November, non-presidential. What for me, I don't wanna happen is all of a sudden we're here 8 years from now and we're going, okay, we need, at the time, $400 million for high school number 2, and the stadium is now $126 million, and well, y'all bought this piece of property back 8 years ago. Why didn't y'all get on that deal so that we weren't hit with it all at once? That, and you know, that's why I think it's hard not to put these things out there. And so, from the financial side, give me your opinion, I guess, because to me that's the bigger budget problem that we have. Is like is looking 5 and 10 years down the road, and not 1 year down the road. So.
Well, and please know, these numbers, my goal is certainly not to discourage anything. I will leave as far as the plans and always, as far as up to y'all, as far as what we do in the future if we were to go out for in November or May. I simply wanted to make the point that we are using what capacity we do have from this year, potentially next year, to accomplish the issuance of the $100 million that's already been authorized, and that if we do go beyond that, it would potentially be a tax rate increase. So I wanna do my job and the responsibility that I feel like I have to let y'all know that it is very, because in the past, we've taken bond elections, we've advertised increases and we haven't had to do it. But there is a real possibility if we do go out, that it will be actual real impact this next time around, if we do go out in November or May. I certainly see the pros and cons to both. Financially, if we went out, we'd have to take a hard look at the strategy of when the cash flow is needed for each project, when we want to issue. Right now, the plan is to issue the remaining $87 million for the 2020, for the May prop next summer. We would take a hard look at that and see, I'd get with Bob and look at the cash flow and see if we potentially hold off on issuing some of that and be strategic based off of if we went back out, and look at the impact of the tax rate, whether or not it was worth it to ask for an increase, and things along those lines. I do know, and I am confident in saying, it'd be very hard to advertise a no tax rate increase if we did go back out. Who's doing that today? Team? No, fine. But is there avenues and ways to accomplish that with having the minimal impact? Yes, we would certainly look at it. It would involve essentially pushing back principal payments where you're paying more interest, and deferring that. If the goal was to keep the tax rate as low as we can, but incur more debt, you're essentially deferring the principal payment, you're paying more interest over the long term. And there's avenues to that, and we would look at the strategy as a whole, depending on what the ultimate goal was.
In 2020, we had almost 19,000 voters that voted the Prop A.
That's right.
And I mean, and now is the largest election ever. This will be the next largest, so I would say you're probably looking at 25,000 with 40,000 voters, whatever. I mean,
You
you're gonna get your truest representation of what
That's
the
the
true
true
vote
that's
is.
my preference.
People will get out and actually, they're gonna vote. When it's just a school bond on their election, it's gotta be your real motivated people to get out and vote. And, we need people going to the polls.
But let's just throw out hypothetically, let's just say $100 million. We go out for another $100 million in November and they pass. And those are gonna be issued over the next 2 to 3 years. Are we talking a 4-cent increase potentially?
Well, this is exactly why I brought our financial advisor here to back me up on this. So Lucas Yonda is sitting back here. He's our financial advisor. He helps structure our debt. So this is getting into the weeds a little bit. So I might defer to him as far as projections on that, because there's so many factors that come into play. I mean, the reality is the property values have increased. If it holds at the 15 to 16%, they've increased at a point beyond what we use for our models already. And if that holds value, that gives us a little bit more capacity. And so if we were to go back out in November or May, and then property values came back out at another 15, 16% next spring, we would have significant impact. I guess the question would be is how would we have to advertise in May? And Lucas, I might lean on you a little bit. What's your thoughts on that?
Go to the bullpen, 7th inning.
Yeah,
Let's go.
yeah.
So let's talk about the first question as far as 100 million. So Garrett saw that coming, and so we've run that model. And so here's the timing. Here's the thing to think through really from a team of 8 perspective. Every August, y'all adopt a tax rate. Y'all got M&O that's driven by the state, but then you have INS, as Garrett said, y'all have local control over. But think about it from a timing perspective with your voters. So when this last election occurred, Prop A had a 3.7 penny increase tied to it based on some conservative assumptions with property value growth, things like that. Depends on what y'all are wanting to do. If y'all go out in November and y'all are trying to say, because we have capacity, it's not a tax rate increase, but then you increase it next summer for a Prop A for this 102 million, obviously there may be some confusion then, because you said in November it's not a tax rate increase, but the following August you increase tax rate related to a prior election. Some of that sequence, obviously y'all have all the control over, because some of that starts here over the next couple of weeks. When y'all have certified values, That's when Garrett turns over the information to the state, ultimately works with the county to get the notice in the paper. The INS tax rate, y'all get to drive. The rate can be set where y'all feel is appropriate. If y'all wanna build it up 3.7 pennies with the goal or aspiration of going for November, at least this way, we met our promise. That revenue line is higher. Now we have capacity for that $100 million election without a tax rate increase. That actually is feasible. Because, you know, the example of 100 million, we wanted to see what that looked like. What would it take in order to get there? It ends up being right on top of the promise that was made on the 102.7 million prop that passed. And so y'all would have options there. Again, it's timing, it's what you think makes sense for the district. Obviously, the political aspects that come into play on trying to time things on communication with taxpayers and past promises, current promises, and how you want to move forward. But y'all do have the ability there. I mean, y'all can visualize that. Obviously, if you take that 33.1 cent line that Garrett had that shows capacity, if you increase that 3.7 pennies, that line is obviously higher. And to Garrett's point, a year from now, values are up double digits again because of new improvements and appreciation of existing values. Y'all are positioned well financially to be able to take on another 100 million. You know, if y'all one day amortize it over 15 years instead of 30 years, yeah, then we're gonna have some dynamics that do change. But if our assumptions continue to look at it like a mortgage and try to treat it like, 30 years because it's new facilities, it's new improvements, then y'all are positioned now. That was where we kind of hit our break even, that if we get beyond 100 million, we're gonna need even more property value growth than we have built into the model. I like to think what we have built into the model is conservative, probably, plans for what could be a reality that here in the next few years, is a recession possibly gonna happen? Economy's been growing. Growing well. At some point, obviously, we all know that it's economics, that's gonna stop. And then will it stop for 2 to 3 years and then spike back up? Probably, if history repeats itself. But those are the kind of variables we have to work with. And as y'all know, interest rates are high. They're supposed to potentially start going down a year from now, but we're building them in at the current interest rates of where things are currently at.
So in my small brain theory, we vote to go up the 3.7 cents now. We can. We go out for $90, $100 million in November. At that point in time, we can advertise it with a 0 tax increase.
Correct. Everything's about assumptions. And
At
what we
the
built
bottom line, in that scenario, the 3.7 cents is a minor impact, and it's went from what, 1.29 to 1 in the last so many years. There's a lot of positive things. We have a lot of growth coming here that's not appreciation growth. You got the apartments on Longmire that are gonna be finished and will be in next year's tax deal. You've got the growth in different things, the commercial stuff that's coming, beside HEB and all these different things that are gonna propel us, without bringing kids as well. Obviously that's something that, we'll discuss inside, but I think those are the kind of things that we need to think about that maybe, we can do and vote and control, what it is, because honestly, I don't know, when's the last time we did go up on property tax, or on the increase? It hadn't been the last 7 years that I've been on here. So, yeah, so he's been on here, 16 years, and so, at some point in time, I think we've got to take a proactive stance towards our community and being able to say, hey, when we're going to have such a small percentage of our population that's going to pay attention to that, and I think that's maybe a great approach for us to take as a board. The one thing we do have a board member election at this time, and so I don't want to put negative things on those people.
Can you build a model that has that increase in there and let us see it?
Yes. Yes, we've already built a preliminary model of it with the 100 million.
Oh, no, I'm just talking about just rate, I mean, you're talking about raising it without even doing the 100 billion. though.
What I'm saying is we vote to raise it now,
Yeah.
and then we go out for a bond in November. Let's just say randomly, I pick numbers of 28.5 million and 66 million. And so whatever those,
94.5.
whatever those numbers were, we should be able to go out and advertise that bond at 0 tax increase, based upon the model they said with going from 3.31 up, increasing it.
And you'd be doing that at the same board meeting. Obviously, it'd have to be by, I think it's August 19th, this cycle,
Yeah.
in order to call, not just trustee election, but obviously a bond election. And that same night, obviously, you're adopting a tax rate, so.
So if we do that, we have full transparency with our community. And then worst case scenario, we decide, hey, Garrett says, hey, it's put us in a great position. Next year, if we didn't have anything or didn't need it, we could lower the tax rate.
Or pay off some bonds early to create and enhance even further capacity.
That's what I'm talking about. There we go.
I mean, y'all have options. That's the thing.
We have
It's truly a
options.
team of 8 each
At
year.
some point, we're gonna have to raise it, I mean,
Yeah.
at some point, if it needed to, the INS will just start paying off this debt, we have to do it. And I know the growth and it's been, I get it, but it's a tricky
It is, but
thing.
then that's the other thing to be thinking about, that let's just say in the worst case scenario, it fails in November. Y'all have the ability then in the spring with the collections that already came in to pay off some of your existing bonds early. And obviously it enhances your capacity, and if y'all went back out in May, y'all be in even a better spot.
Well, the thing I think it's important, not only for people in this room, is people need to understand, we're sitting in a great position, because there's a lot of school districts that
Yeah.
they're just trying to get back to 0.
Yeah.
I mean, they're trying to get back to a balanced budget, and fortunately, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
They're not having these discussions like what we're having with, as you said, Lucas, and you said, with options.
Damn new superintendent, I don't know what she was thinking. Raising taxes. Love it. Be aggressive.
Yeah, I mean,
For 6 months.
Yeah.
No, y'all voted that already.
So obviously, I mean, there are some options, and that'd be up to y'all. I mean, obviously, it would be a little, like you said, it'd be more political in nature. And I mean, I will say, just looking at the surrounding districts, just to make you all aware, obviously, where we're currently at versus the surrounding districts, our INS rate is already slightly higher than the surrounding district, but we're growing a little faster than they are, and that's just the reality of what it is. But just to make you aware, as far as the points that are gonna be brought up, obviously, we are a little higher right now, so.
Okay, so what does the 3.7 cents do on the $500,000 house?
And that's what I wanna see is,
Yeah, I mean, obviously, and that's the deal with taxes, it's a very, he's crunching numbers on his phone back there.
Yeah.
He can tell
Billy
me.
Wagner, let's go.
But,
$148 for the year, divided by 12, you $12.36 a month.
yes, it's a very minimal impact when you break it down like that. But, and then the other interesting.
That's on a $500,000 house.
Correct. And with that, has a homestead exemption, so it's
so
$400,000
that's
tax.
family, fine, like one of these twice.
It was 400,000 tax person?
Yes, sir, they have the homestead exemption, you have $100,000 in your property. And if y'all ever want to crunch, you take your value of the house, the 500, give an example, you take the homestead exemption off, so it makes it 400 taxable. Divide by 100 times whatever tax rate we're talking about, in this case, 0.0371.
Okay.
So 3.71 pennies.
Okay.
And then that gives you your answer.
Obviously, this is up to y'all, and we can run different models and different funding models for INS. I think the other thing optically, just to make you aware, obviously, as the state keeps compressing our M&O rate, and this, again, this is just the reality of where we are. When you look at, we were at over $1 in 18-19, and now we're at 66 cents. I mean, as they compress that that's not gonna be compressed significant this year. And you see, it was 66.92, and now we're at 66.69 is my projection. And so that's not a big impact, but as we increase the INS rate, obviously, you look at our tax rate as a whole, and you're thinking about 50% of our tax rate is gonna be on funding debt, versus just normal operations. So you just kinda have to look at that optic as well. But again, it is adopting the tax rates up to y'all. I will run some numbers and have him run some additional models as far as the 3.7 or even stair step it up from that to see what it looks like and see what we could accomplish moving forward. So, and all within the next month because we got to adopt it in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But,
Very
okay.
I don't know, I don't need 100, just 96.
Okay.
4 million's 4 million.
Wrong with it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Let's
I
jump
got
in.
that Aggie NIL one.
Okay. Any other questions?
Okay, so going into next year insurance,
Yep.
obviously, I think we all have the same goal of if we don't have, we've got to figure out a way for the district to not take on any more burden, but we really don't want to put any burden on our employees.
Yep.
Going into, moving forward into next year, the following year, I should say, that, I guess 25-26 school year. Is that something that we realistically think that January we're gonna be able to know where we're gonna need to be? When does the insurance company start giving us proposals?
They typically don't start looking at renewals until May. But next year, we will be proactive to where we will start that bid process probably in January. And we will go down on the street and there'll be in us, and that's gonna really be pushing that. I mean, the con to that is it's most likely gonna have an impact on the out-of-pocket, the deductibles, because that whole, once we bid that out, whatever comes back, it's gonna change that structure. But we're looking at other aspects of the health insurance plan that offer more benefits elsewhere to kind of balance it out. Honestly, I think there's going to be pros and cons to it, but at the end of the day, the goal is to get back to a balanced approach. I do anticipate a deficit this year. It's very possible that we have a deficit next year, but I think we have a solid game plan. We'll probably transfer another $1.5 million, depending on how the year's ended. We might transfer $2 million over there, and that's going to give us enough cushion to operate within the next year and a half, 18 months, to be able to comfortably make those decisions to move forward.
Yeah, we'll see what it looks like when you read it. We'll see how it
As far as the tax rate? Okay, we will work on that. Knowing Lucas will have something for me by tomorrow morning, 8:30 or something.
No, that would be good.
So, okay. Anything else? Okay. I don't have the gavel, it's Kyle's.
All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn our budget workshop number 2?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Williams, a second by Mr. Carson. Is there any further discussion? All of those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 6-0. It is 5:19 p.m. I would like to call the July 15, 2024 regular meeting to order. It is 5:30 p.m. There is a quorum present. Notice of this meeting has been posted for a time and manner required by law. Mr. Jones, would you please call the roll?
Cliff Williams. Scott Carson.
Present.
Charles Perry. Kyle Hagemeyer.
Present.
Miss Paulette Trailer.
Present.
My name is Chad Jones. Our missing member is Miss Nikita Lagway. Thank you.
Public comments. The board will hear comments from the audience only during the public comment portion of the meeting. The public comment portion of the meeting will be no more than 30 minutes total. Each speaker will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to address the board. Groups of 5 or more who wish to express the same viewpoint on an issue must appoint a representative to speak for the group and will have 3 minutes to present, unless the topic is an item on the board agenda. Please respect the privacy of others and refrain from identifying students, employees, and other community members by name. I will determine whether the speaker has attempted to solve this matter administratively through resolution channels established by policy. If not, the speaker will be referred to the appropriate policy to seek resolution. Disruption of this meeting will not be tolerated at any time. Per board policy, the board does not respond during public comments. This evening, we have a first public speaker with me, Ms. Diane Hibner.
This afternoon, I have 2 points regarding action to be taken by the school board and action to be completed by school board member position 5. Number 1, action required by the school board. It has previously been stated that the poor decisions by the previous administration and sanction by the school board have created a lack of trustworthiness in the minds of the public. It is time for a member of the school board to speak up. Might I suggest the president of the school board, who represents all the members, both past and present. Remember that all of you drank the Kool-Aid which was served by the previous administration. It is time for individuals who were responsible for past mistakes to speak out. In other words, eat some crow. The community will hear you, and maybe trust can begin to be reestablished. This is one way to put the past behind us so that we can move into the future. It is simple. Admit to past mistakes and indicate that we are now on a new path with a new direction. A new superintendent, many new administrative staff members, new procedures to correct past failures, thus making accountability realism. Renewed focus of educational goals, thus creating an educational environment of which we can all be proud. Energize staff and personnel. Everyone matters. Everyone plays a part in creating the WISD community. Number 2, action required by school board member position number 5. Let's direct our attention to school board member position 5. Your trial for your DWI charge is quickly approaching. As a member of the WISD school board, the trial results will become a part of the news cycle, whether you want it or you do not. You owe it to your fellow colleagues, the WISD students, and the WISD community to resign immediately to lessen the effect of this story. You are no longer an effective leader. It is time to move on so that this position can be filled with an individual who is respected by the community and is able to become a productive member of the school board. You owe it to yourself and to we, the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hibner. We will now turn over to Dr. James. Pledge of Allegiance.
Now we'll go ahead and move to the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation given to us by Mr. Travis Utek. If you'll please stand.
Everyone please stand. American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Please remain standing. Dear God, at this time, we just want to come to you and just thank you for allowing us to be here today and the blessings that we have to live in this great nation that you provided. First off, we just want to ask that you be with all those who are still been affected at this time by the hurricane that has come through our area and all across Texas and the rest of our country. You know, just be with those people who are still suffering and just dealing with the emotions of that event. We also ask you just to be with our country in general with the events that happened a couple of days ago in Pennsylvania. And I just pray that your guidance and your blessing and your leadership can still be on our country at this time as we go through those moments. I also ask that you specifically be with us this year in Willis ISD and this school board meeting tonight. And just the work that's being done here, God, is work that is still for you and is work that it's about you. I just pray that you give us the wisdom and the guidance we need to do the best we can for the students and the community of Willis ISD. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much, Travis. I appreciate you acknowledging the tragedy and the tragedy of our weather and the tragedy of this weekend. It doesn't go unnoticed, and we have a lot of work to do here in our community in what we do in helping our students grow to be productive citizens, and so I thank you for that. We have a few reports, the regular standing informational and ad hoc reports and items, and those are the safety performance report. It's in your bulletin, your book, as well as the financial bill payment report and bond summary, which was done a little bit different by Garrett. And we also have the investment report. So I want to give you an opportunity to ask any questions at this time.
Any questions? Okay.
All right.
Consent agenda. Item A, approval of minutes. B, school lunch prices 2024-2025. School lunch prices for 2020, the adult prices and then the student lunch price for 2024-2025. D, 3 to 6 is contracted services for 2024-2025 school year. Any questions? Mr. Williams.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Williams, a second by Ms. Traylor. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Discuss and possible action items. A, discuss, consider approval of 2024-2025 health insurance program.
I'm going to introduce Laura Goldney from Walker & Associates, and she's going to present our health insurance renewal.
Thanks, Garrett. And thank you, board members, and welcome, Dr. James. It's nice to see you. And so we will be looking back. Part of the review and the update that we do is to sort of go back in time. So we'll see how you finished your year end. So for 2022-2023, the total net plan cost for the Willis ISD Health Plan ended at $7 million. Your maximum liability, so that would have been equivalent to fully insured premium. If the district was not self-insured, you would have been paying out that maximum cost of $7.6 million. You did exceed your expected liability, so the plan did run a little bit hot in 22-23, although that being said, you did save $500,000. But I will draw your attention to the stop-loss reimbursements. This is how you know that the plan experienced many high claims. The amount of those reimbursements at $2.8 million, and that means that you had high claimants who met that $160,000 threshold, and you had several of them in order to get to that $2.8 million. Overall, not a horrible year, but definitely this year is better. So let's talk a little bit about that. This is your 6-month review, and I know we're a little bit out from that at this point, but this gives you a snapshot of how you're running. So your total net plan cost at 6 months, you're at $3.1 million, and that puts you on track for the 23-24 year end at $6.3 million. So that's a much better year that you're having this year than 22-23, and that's a 35% decrease from the previous reporting period. Your overall in-network savings with Blue Cross Blue Shield was excellent at 71%. The breakdown of that, inpatient at 67%, outpatient at 73%, and professional at 67%. And that's one of the things that Blue Cross does well, is their in-network discounting and the broadness of the Blue Choice network. Your self-funded savings since 2015 is $8.5 million, so it has been good for the district over time in order to save money by being self-funded. At this reporting period, you did not have any high-cost claimants over the $160,000 threshold for the 6-month period, but you did have some claims approaching that. You can see the list of the top 5 high-cost claimants by diagnosis category. So infectious parasitic at $117,000, digestive at $112,000, injury poisoning $96,000, infection parasitic $77,000, and the neoplasms, which is cancer, and and that should be 74,000. I apologize, there's a typo there. 74 million would not be good. Top diagnoses, perinatal was the most costly diagnostic category at the close of the reporting period with what we call per member per month. So that's a metric of how we show cost at $46. And the top 5 diagnoses by per member per month include the following: perinatal, neoplasms, pregnancy, injury, poisoning, and musculoskeletal. In 22-23, what drove your high cost claimants was, of course, a NICU baby. And you do have a very high female population being a school district, so there's always the potential for complicated pregnancies as part of your high cost claimant mix. And then we look at enrollment. Your enrollment's actually down about 4.6% from the previous reporting period. The average age of your member in the health plan is 35 years. Your membership breakdown: 69% employees, 4.6% spouses, and 26% dependents. Pharmacy increased slightly by 12% compared to the previous reporting period, and your pharmacy spend breakdown: specialty at 51%, brand at 41%, and generic at 8%. Your generic dispensing rate is at 88%, an increase over the previous reporting period, and that's an excellent generic dispensing rate. So I will just draw attention to some of the historical plan changes. It's been almost a decade since we made some of these very impactful changes to the plan, so we really haven't had to make many over the last decade. So in 2015, 2016 is when we made the last round of major changes, not only to funding, but also to plan design. We added the high value network to Plan 2. You can see we made some major adjustments to the prescription benefits as well. And because of that, during that time, you've only had to make some minor changes in 17, 18, 21, 22, and then last year, 22, 23. So when you are able to see how your plan is running, it allows you the ability to forecast and make those changes appropriately and sometimes ahead of time. Willis made these changes in 2016. TRS made these similar changes to their pool in 2019. So Willis was really a trendsetter there. And so it's allowed you to not have to make major drastic changes when you've had a tough year. That being said, you are now in a space for the next decade to come where we do need to make some of those planning focus. And so I will just give this to you as a historical reference point and let you know that you've managed the plan very well over time. But next year I know that Garrett and I are looking forward to working on what those new changes might be looking forward so that you have a 10-year plan to really draw on as we go through those renewals. Any questions? Okay. So just as I mentioned, the changes that you've made to your health plan have been very impactful not only to your costs but also to your employees by keeping their premiums low. So you'll notice that your premiums compared to TRS Active Care are much more affordable. And this year, TRS Active Care is again raising their premiums for the 24-25 plan year. So being self-funded has allowed Willis ISD to be very, very competitive when it comes to premiums for employees and also to managing your health plan over time. So I am recommending the renewal, and you'll notice that's our last slide. So Blue Cross, even though you had a wonderful year this year, they really did try to give you a rather significant increase in your claim factor. We were able to hold your fixed cost flat for this upcoming year, which is a pretty significant negotiation. So last year you were paying $1.6 million in fixed costs. This year, you'll still be paying 1.6 in fixed costs. Those are the dollars we know that you will spend. The claims liability is you may have it, you may not, depending on what the claims mix was for this year. Last year, how we're running for 23-24, we're expecting the total cost of your plan to come in at around 6.3 for this year. So even though your max is set at 8.5, more than likely you won't run there. You'll probably run somewhere closer to expected. And so we are recommending the renewal with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas. Any questions?
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve Blue Cross Blue Shield as the district's health insurance carrier and approve the monthly funding levels as proposed in the funding level exhibit for the 2024-25 year plan.
We have a motion by Mr. Carson, a second by Mr. Williams. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much for your time this evening and have a nice one.
Thank you. I have no idea. I don't know how to turn this off. It's on silent.
Maybe Stephen does.
Yeah. Throw it in the trash and stuff on it. Item B, discuss, consider approval of approving employee missed workday forgiveness for days missed, week July 8th through the 11th, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. President, Board, Dr. James. We are coming to you as you realize the hurricane caused power outages, damages not just our family, but our campuses, departments. And that required many of our staff that were on duty to have to miss work because of that, mainly our office staff. We had two groups of workers on at that time, our 226-day workers at the campus level and district level, and then our 260-day employees, which are our emergency response personnel that need to come up. So we are asking for you to waive the makeup days for those employees that were directed not to report.
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve to waive the missed work days the week of July 8th through July 11th, 2024 of the indicated district employees for inclement weather conditions, damage, and district loss of electricity due to the recent hurricane, and pay full compensation to those employees for these days.
We have a motion by Mr. Jones, a second by Ms. Traylor. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I want to say some things real quick. Guys, y'all did a great job. I saw a lot of these people out here working hard. I was driving around looking at these projects. Maintenance department, land, they did a great job, and I really appreciate that.
Awesome. All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Item C, discuss, consider approval of classroom furniture.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, board members, Dr. James, and a final salute to Carol Rogers. We're bringing you an agenda item this evening to address classroom furniture needs in the district. Last year, we spent about $35,000 on furniture to address those needs. This year, in conjunction with IT&L and the business office and our department, we assessed what we think are going to be the needs for the fall when kids come back in August. The majority of these are items that we're going to put directly into a classroom, i.e. desks, chairs, teacher's desk, and horseshoe tables, things along those lines. The campus needs are broken down as you see. The majority of them or all of them are classroom needs. We're going to outfit several items at C.C. Hardy. We're going to have 5 new classrooms at Cannon Elementary we need to outfit, 2 at Lagway, 6 at Brabham, and the high school is going to be receiving enough to do 5 new classrooms.
classrooms or what? Because it says 2 rooms, 2 classrooms.
Traditionally, what they're doing is taking spaces that are utilized for a different purpose right now, but I don't know specifically, but I can get you an answer to that question.
Yeah.
It's, 2 of our science labs are being, transforming into a classroom. So they're maybe just a tad smaller, I'm not really sure what the dimensions are,
But
there
they're,
are 2 science labs going into classrooms.
were you utilizing those rooms as science labs?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
As you can see, we have provided you kind of a breakdown on elementary and secondary needs and what we're gonna be receiving. As you analyze this list, you'll probably notice that the majority of this growth area is in secondary, primarily Brabham in the high school for desk and chairs.
And also when I looked at this, that's 11 classrooms, so we're putting 39 desks and chairs in those 11 classrooms? Are we gonna maybe meet our square footage by the state? Student pupil ratio?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
Some of the furniture is to replace furniture, but it's not operational, so it's not increasing the number of students in every one of those classrooms, but to make sure that students have.
But they could possibly have 39 kids in their classrooms.
For the upper grades, I don't have the numbers exactly right now, but,
So we're looking at like some of the DC and AP classes at the high school potentially. We're working on getting those ratios down, whether we're collapsing classes or stacking different classes to get them down. I know in the past we've gotten them kind of high, and we're looking at those numbers, Dr. Clardy and Noah, at reducing those numbers as much as possible, get them down to a range that's normal, I would say more normal for those classes, which could be from 32 to 35. That's the goal.
Okay.
For AP and DC classes.
I just know in some of our older classrooms, they're not that big, and you start putting 36, 37, 38 kids in those rooms, there's not much room left to move around in.
Is there any further discussion? Do we have a motion for item C? Mr. Williams?
Move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve the expenditure for $134,745.81 from the general fund for the purchase of classroom furniture for the school specialty, from school specialty to equip the district with its needs.
We have a motion by Mr. Williams, a second by Ms. Traylor. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Item D, discuss, consider approval of purchase over $50,000 for Cannon Ford. This item has more information as requested and will be tabled at this time. Item E, discuss, consider possible action item for proposed construction contract with Spearpoint Engineering Services for the Willis High School parking lot expansion project.
Thank you, Board. Dr. James. Construction contract for Spearpoint Engineering for design services for the Willis High School parking lot expansion. The proposal and the contract that you have before you is based on a 6% fee for construction budget. We put the dollar amount of $270 in there for that, for Spearpoint's contract, because I know the board has always asked, what is that dollar amount equal to? So that's why we put the dollar amount. Normally, it's just a percentage. So the contract is based on 6% of construction budget. As of right now, our construction budget is $4.5 million for the parking lots. So if we take the 6 and the 4.5 or 4 million, that's where it basically ends up.
We appreciate that.
Yeah. This is funded by the 2024 Bond Prop A. It's part of the expansion for the 9th grade center. The design will start in July of 2024. We'll be finished with the design in January of 2025. And this is strictly for parking lot expansion. I know last month we spoke of, when you approved Spearpoint last month, there was concern about path of travel for cars and parking. We're working with another firm for that, which we already have signed up, Kimberly Horn. We're working with them with the route, and we'll continue to work with them as we increase the parking.
Mr. Jones.
Sir, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve the contract for Spear Point Engineering for the design services on the Willis High School parking lot expansion funded from the 2024 bond program.
We have a motion by Mr. Jones, a second by Mr. Carson. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Item F, discuss, consider possible action item on proposed design contract with Huckabee Architects Design Services for small capital projects, CTE's hay storage building, and WHS screen walls.
Yes, this was the contract that you have before you is the contract for Huckabee for 2 projects. We combined them as one. Our legal team advised us to combine them as one contract instead of 2 separate ones. Huckabee was approved last month for design services for the CTE Ag hay storage and the Willis High School locker room screen walls. This contract is not based on a fee base, it's based on a lump sum because the size of the projects are very small, so they actually did this on a lump sum basis, and that's what this is designed for, based on. And we put the dollar amounts for each one of them. The hay storage, Huckabee will be paid $21,000, and then the screen walls will be paid $31,000. Because I know the board asked what the dollar amounts are, so.
You know what's coming?
Yeah, so we put it in there.
All right.
Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir. I move we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve the contract for Huckabee Architects to provide architectural professional service for the small capital improvement project listed above. When do you think that timeline is on? Sorry, Kyle. When are you gonna start that stuff?
Well, we should be finished with design by the end of the summer. That's what we're anticipating, and actually start construction as soon as possible, hopefully in September or October.
Okay, thank
We have a motion, or is that? Will you finish?
you. Yes, that's
Okay. So we have a motion by Mr. Jones, a second by Mr. Carson. Any further discussion? I know that we have to get all these architects involved to go do these projects to get through the city of Conroe.
Yes, these projects will have to be permitted, and that's the reason we've had to obtain.
I mean, there's no way for us to build them and ask for forgiveness. We should be able to build a hay barn for $21,000, not hire somebody to design it for, I mean, I know I'm just pretty cheap, but it just, and I know we probably don't have another source, but is that the reason that we're having to go through this process?
Not the only reason, only because we're right next to a detention pond, and we have to obtain the legal services from our structural engineer, our civil engineer, because in 5 or 7 or 8 years, we don't want for the concrete to start failing. Yes, we could possibly design it through the construction department because we've been doing this our entire careers, but we're not engineers to design that side of it, so we want to be safe and that where it's going to be long-term.
I didn't even think about the detention pond, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Discuss, consider, and take possible action items to retain the professional engineering services of HTS Inc. Consultants for materials testing for various district projects.
Yeah, HTS has been a key partner for the district over the several years. We're asking for the board to approve them as our material testing firm. This is going through our legal department. Blake is here. He's requested that we bring this up to the board for approval. Any professional services that someone provides has to be approved by the board. So we're asking HTS to be approved by the board for our design, material testing for future projects. So that way, when we issue them a contract, it's not a full-blown contract for every single one. It's just, it's what Blake calls it, something else. It's a short form, so to speak. And HTS has been a key role to our success for material testing in the district over the years.
Mr. Carson.
Move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve, we retain the professional services of HTS Incorporated Consultants for materials testing on various school district projects to approve the contract with HTS Incorporated consultants to perform materials testing for gravel middle school turf project and delegate authority to the superintendent and her delegee to sign the agreement of nation testing for further consultants.
We have a motion by Mr. Carson, a second by Ms. Traylor. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Item H, consider possible action item to determine the goods and services delivery method providing the best value for baseball and softball outfield fence padding.
We're requesting the delivery method by using the cooperative for goods and services for the baseball, softball, outfield fence padding. This is being driven. There was an accident recently with someone that ran into the fencing. That's a metal corrugated fence. So we have funds left over in the 22 bond in that budget for that particular project. We're going to continue using those funds, and we want to put outside padding, along. It's a 3-inch thick vinyl padding on that fence. We were going to obtain 3 bids, and as of now, our construction budget for that is $150,000. And we're asking to use the cooperative method for goods and services.
Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir. I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve utilizing a purchasing cooperative as the delivery method, provided the best value for the Willis baseball and softball field fence padding project.
We have a motion by Mr. Jones, a second by Mr. Williams. Is there any further discussion?
We're gonna come in a lot less than that,
Yes, we are.
all right.
I actually changed it at the last minute. My budget was $100,000, and then at the time that we put this book together, we only had 2 of the, 2 numbers that we thought that were going to come in. It was a lot higher than that, but the third one, we think we can actually get it for under 100.
All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Item I, discuss and consider approval to amend 2024-2025 regular school board meeting schedule.
Thank you, President Hagemeyer. Due to the need of an election deadline, it's proposed to amend the 24-25 regular school board meeting schedule to reflect the Wednesday, August 21st, 2024 meeting to be changed to Monday, August 19th of 2024.
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve to amend the 2024-2025 regular school board meeting schedule to change the Wednesday, August 21st, 2024 meeting to Monday, August 19th, 2024.
We have a motion by Ms. Traylor, a second by Mr. Carson. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Item J.
In my book, we missed the scope increase for Yates Stadium,
Yeah, in my book, I got that as well.
and it's not listed in the agenda, but I've got it in my board book.
Okay, so that is an item when, that's why we're having a special board meeting next Monday morning on the 8th. It was in the board book when we had to come back and revise and reschedule the meeting. That got left out of the agenda, and I was looked at it and missed it, and so we're gonna have a special board meeting to approve that on next Monday morning at 8 o'clock. And so that was the reason for that meeting.
It's a posting error. Thank you for catching that.
Item J. Did we vote on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
No. No, we voted, didn't we? Did we vote on it?
Yeah, we just.
Yes. Yes,
Okay,
we
perfect.
voted.
Sorry, guys. Discuss, consider approval of TASB local policy update 123.
Thank you so much, President Kyle. Attached, you're going to find in your board policy and in the board update a lengthy policy regarding update 123. It was presented for adoption. So we would like to just briefly kind of go over those policies. We know that it was in your handbook or in your board book, but we definitely want to make sure you all are aware and have an opportunity to ask questions. And so I'll start with my first. section, and mine is BBD, BBFA, and GF. All of those policies deal with our board policies and how we conduct ourselves as a board and a team. So the first one, board training BBD, which is local, requires our trustees to complete training on the Public Information Act if the Attorney General finds that there's been a violation of the Act. It also clarifies that this training after a violation cannot be delegated to our district's Public Information Act coordinator, which could be me. So I can't do that in your stead. It means that we all have to take that. BBFA local is dealing with ethics, a conflict of interest disclosures. What this actually does is strengthens the ethical duty of our trustees to disclose financial or other personal interest in board transactions. It also goes beyond the statutory conflicts of interest set out in our state and federal law. And lastly, there's added language which aims to demonstrate a commitment to avoiding undue influence, increasing transparency, and avoiding the appearance of impropriety in our public dealings, which I believe that is what we've been really striving to do at every one of our board meetings, and I know that y'all have expected that, so thank you. And then lastly is public complaints, GF, which is also local, and that is updated to reflect changes made within a CKE policy, which is earlier. No changes were made to the core complaint process, which were outlined in our GF local. It references our legal issues in Update 123, which is a memo which calls for more information on common legal concerns and best practices related to public complaints. We'll find this memo, and we can go deeper into this later under local manual updates on policy online through TASB. And so I'll be able to definitely help you with that as we go deeper. Next, I have Travis.
All right, so I have a couple of slides of some change in policies. The first one there is emergency plan, CKC local. This is a section on notice regarding violent activity. It's recommended to comply with legal requirements. So once it's been approved by you guys, administrative procedures will have to be created to align with TEA's model standards. Then CKEC local, compliance and clarification with House Bill 3. This was the school safety bill, of course, after the incident in Uvalde. Districts may have agreements with multiple law enforcement agencies depending on district needs and jurisdiction. And then a statement regarding the jurisdiction of school resource officers has also been added to the board policy. And then F&G local, really with just a couple of words that were changed because of other change to policies and legal, just added a couple of words there, V and series, and that's it. All right, and then my second slide. All right, this is to do with instructional resources. So EF local is going away completely because it's being deleted from policy because they're splitting it into two, EFA and EFB. EFA has to do with instruction materials. Basically, this says that selection instruction materials must be chosen in accordance with stated objectives and administrative regulations. And then at reconsideration, the list of individuals who can submit a request has been revised to align with what we do for library materials, and that'll all be listed in the legal policy also. And then in library materials, that's from House Bill 900. It was also known as the Reader Act. This requires vendors to assign sexually explicit and sexually relevant ratings to any material the vendor determines meets the law's definitions. And then every odd-numbered year, starting, it'll be January 1st, 2025, school districts must review the material in their collection that was rated sexually relevant and determine if it should remain in the collection or not. And those will be in the board policy.
Regarding CQC local technology resources equipment, this calls for us to implement guidelines as developed and suggested by TEA and the Texas Health and Human Services Commission that address the health and safety of students while using digital devices in schools. And these guidelines must address the use of devices for various ages and development levels, the amount of class time a student spends while using the device, appropriate frequency for breaks while using the devices, posturing and physical positioning of the devices, use of digital devices to complete homework, recommendations regarding total daily screen time, as well as the usage of software to block inappropriate content. And also will require teacher training regarding these guidelines to ensure proper implementation.
Mine are a little bit easier than those. DCE local is really just talking about non-Chapter 21 contracts. If there is a termination during the contract, the employee has the opportunity to bring that to the board. They've had that. They've just tried to strengthen the language on that and making sure that it's delineating between during the contract and at the end of the contract. DGBA local, the only thing that is different is that they've added the word series to that. CKE, as Travis talked about just a little bit ago, they've broken that out into several different components. DIA, they're going to do the same thing. DIA deals with the various types of harassment, employee harassment that could surface, and retaliation. Their plan is to break that out like some of the others. Instead of having one DIA policy, break that out into the several different components of it.
Good afternoon. Board policy EEH local has to do with instructional arrangements, specifically homebound instruction. The student attendance and accounting handbook has been updated for homebound instruction to include the term psychological reasons as a reason for needing homebound instruction. This is applicable to both general education and special education homebound. Previously, this policy included the language of medical reasons. So the changes, the inclusion of medical reasons as well as psychological reasons. What has not changed is that the requirements still include the provision of confinement to a hospital or homebound setting for a minimum of 4 weeks that do not have to be consecutive throughout the year, as well as it still must be a documented need by a physician. And for our students in special education, our committee has to consider whether or not that placement is appropriate to provide a free appropriate public education per the student's IEP. So those provisions have not changed, but the addition of psychological reasons has been added.
Mr. Carson.
Move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve to add, revise, and delete local policies as offered by TASB Policy Services for consideration and according to the instruction sheet for TASB Localized Policy Manual Update number 123, the local policy changes as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Carson, second by Mr. Jones. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Item 7, convene into closed session for the purpose of considering matters for which closed session are authorized by Title V, Chapter 551, Texas Government Code .071 through .084 and .129. A, discuss teacher resignations and employee appointments, Texas Government Code 551.074. B, discuss consider approval of proposed offer to Entergy for the utility easements in front of elementary number 7, 15 acres. C, discuss consider possible approval of proposed offer for Entergy utility easement along the fence in front of Brabham and Metter Elementary School. D, consider possible approval proposed offer to TxDOT for the land purchase along 75 on the corner of 830. The land will serve as new turning lane for Highway 75 and north of 830 west. Yep.
Before we close, if people are going to leave, I don't think a round of applause or a standing ovation will do her justice, but this will be Ms. Rogers' last board meeting. amount of time she's put in here at Willis, all the different things she's seen from being a PE teacher to doing what she does now. She's seen it all. Words can't express what you mean to me, my family, the school district, this community. Truly appreciate it. I hope Bobby doesn't work you to death, but we truly appreciate you and love you.
I do think that
Sorry, I asked my husband.
She was my PE teacher in elementary school. I think that was the only time she might have been taller than me.
And I think, I think for me especially, the past year's been interesting with Dr. Harkrider leaving and Dr. Crow stepping in. And I'll tell you, the glue in this whole deal is the lady sitting down there at the end. The experience and knowledge that she has, you can't hire that. And so the effort that she gives to Willis ISD is unmeasurable. And so for me, I want to say thank you, because there's a lot of times I called and said, I have no clue what this is about or what I'm doing or anything. And she said, okay, beep, 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 beep. I was like, okay, it makes sense now. I appreciate you. And I think that just the effort that she puts into her office and her position being successful is something that we can all learn from. Definitely going to have a party for her. All right, so if you'll notice, we did it a little bit different this time, the fact that we went through our agenda items 4, and now we're going into closed session because we didn't want you to feel like you had to sit here during your summertime away from your family. And so we did that. Plus, it gives us a little bit of time if we need extra time, that we don't have time constraints as we're growing with Dr. James and all of us growing together. So we appreciate you guys. That's it. We will see here. Let me read my list. Hold on, Paulette. The board will now. No, I don't say anything. Perfect.
You want to say what time?
All done.
What time is it?
It is 6:20. The board will now reconvene in open session. It is, somebody got time for me?
8:36.
Oh, you have to touch your phone.
8:36. Are there any motions from closed session? Mr. Williams.
Item A, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve.
We have a motion and a second by Ms. Traylor. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Mr. Williams.
On item B, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Williams, a second by Mr. Jones. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Item C, Mr. Williams.
Move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation on item C and approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Williams, a second by Ms. Traylor. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Is there any board member comments?
Oh, I have something.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess, Coach Miller, you had athletic kids out there the other day giving out water and stuff with Robert Walker. Thank you. And we had 4-H kids and FFA kids out there working their tails off for about 5 hours.
Yeah, they did a great job.
But thanks for sending those kids out there. I'm sure they appreciated it.
Got to work for my own kids for a little bit, so I was trying to.
Superintendent comments.
Just a reminder that our future meetings will have a special meeting on Monday, July 22nd at 8 a.m. And an August regular meeting will be moved as you approved on Monday, August 19th at 5:30 p.m. And I would like to echo Ms. Paulette's comments just about all of the the community members that went and helped and board members that helped our community with the tragedy of having all of their maybe electricity out or houses, you know, damaged. So it just is a testament to our community. So thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion by Mr. Williams, second by Ms. Traylor. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0.